So it is the French word which is having the meaning means a neighborhood, right? So as I told you that environment is basically a life support system, right? Which provides you or which provides us the air, water, food, and land for our sustenance. Okay. So, the environment basically, surround us. Okay. So for any living organism, okay. So for any living organism, let's say the human being, okay. So the human being basically, surrounded by the environment. So this environment basically consisting of, okay, basically both components. So these two components are called biotic components and abiotic components. Okay. So biotic components means the living components which are having the life. Okay. The non-biotic or abiotic components means they don't have the life. Okay. So the biotic and abiotic components both consisting of the part of your environment. So you can see basically the difference between biotic and abiotic component or non-biotic component. All right. So as I told you that biotic and both non-biotic components are the natural environment or the part of natural environment. So you see basically here the biotic components basically referring to those, organism or, those components which has the life. That means all living organism has life. So that is why they are correspond to the biotic components, right? For example, plants, for example, animals, these are called biotic components. All right. Abiotic components, right? Abiotic components means those, components which does not have the life. That means they are non-living element or they are non-living component. So the non-living component can be land, can be air, right? Can be water. So they are all non-living component of environment. All right. Next, understand the definition of natural environment. Okay. So when you say the natural environment include, say, land, right? It include water, it include air, it include plants, and it also include animals. All right. So the natural environment basically consisting of these components. All right. And when you talk about the domain of the natural environment, the domains means the first of all is the lithosphere, which is predominantly consisting of the solid land surface, isn't it? It is predominantly consisting of solid land surface. Hydrosphere means it is consisting of, the hydro means water. So all sort of a water like sea, river, etc. Isn't it? So all water related components. Atmosphere, that means you have the gases or gaseous envelope. You have different type of gases like oxygen, nitrogen, methane, isn't it? Carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, argon. So you have different type of gases in the atmosphere. Biosphere, it is basically, those component where the life is basically exist. All right. So let's look at one by one these domains of the natural environment. Okay. So first of all, let's understand lithosphere. Lithosphere. So what is the lithosphere? Lithosphere means it is the hard and solid topmost layer of the earth. So lithosphere means it is the hard and solid topmost layer of the earth. And I told you that it is the solid most part of earth, isn't it? So it is the hard because solid surface will definitely have the hard surface, and it is a solid most, right? And it basically, provide us lot of, other inputs like you have the forest, you have the farms, you have the grasses, right? And also the land is basically used for the settlement also. That means this hard surface basically, can be eroded and can be first of all weathered. Okay. So you have weathering process here itself. Okay. You have erosion process here itself, which has led to the formation of soil. Okay. And this soil is basically become the base for the, for growing of your forest, for growing of your farms, your grasslands, right? And the land for human settlement also, because it is the soil which basically allows the human to survive, because the human also need, the crops, for example, the feeding crops, right? So for example, you have the alluvial soil, okay, which is basically derived from, the sedimentation, which is basically derived from, the alluvium, which is basically derived from, the rivers, right, which is basically deposited over the period of the time, right? So it basically covered with the soil, as I told you, minerals and the rocks. All right. And it also includes some of landforms because it's consisting of the solid topmost part of earth's surface. All right. So it includes certain landforms like mountains, okay, plateaus and plains. Okay, as you graduate up in the higher classes, you will be able to learn what is the mountain. So mountain, you all people knows about the mountain, right? It is the elevated portion of earth, right, in the form of your mountains. Plateaus means it is a flat topped surface, okay, which is suddenly rises from, from the base, and it has the flat topped surface, right? The plateaus are generally considered as a more stable part of earth, okay. The plains are basically, have comparatively lesser amount of slope. So that means you do have the slope, but there is a significant lesser amount of slope, or the change of the slope is very very less. All right. So it is lithosphere. Okay, let's understand the hydrosphere. As I told you, hydrosphere means it comprises all the domains of water and water bodies. So everywhere, wherever you find the water or water bodies, the domain is basically called hydrosphere. So that means you have, first of all, seas, you have oceans, you have rivers, you have lake. Okay, you have many such example. For example, you say Ganga river, okay, you say any lake, say Harike lake, okay. You have different type of oceans like, you know Indian Ocean, isn't it? And you have many types of seas also, right? So you have different type of, these water bodies which basically correspond to hydrosphere. We'll learn more about them when we graduate in the higher classes. All right, let's understand the atmosphere. Atmosphere basically, is a thin envelope of the air which surround the earth. So it is a thin envelope, okay, which surround us, or which surround the earth. So you must understand, this thin envelope of the air basically consisting of the different proportion of the air. For example, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, right? The oxygen is the life support gas. The nitrogen is also required for the plants. The carbon dioxide is also required for, for the plants, right? So all such gases are very much important. You have, certain inert gases also like argon, krypton, xenon, right, etc. All right. Now the atmosphere basically protect us from the harmful rays of the sun. The harmful rays, like you have the ultraviolet rays. These ultraviolet rays used to fall from the sun, and there is a layer called ozone layer. There is layer called ozone layer. This layer basically protect us from ultraviolet rays. So it basically absorbs these ultraviolet rays which falls upon the ozone layer, and which basically, remove those, those harmful layers from reaching to the earth's surface. All right. So that is why it's basically protect us from the sun. And it consisting of the gases, dust and the water vapor also. So as you know that apart from gases, you have another substances also like water vapor, okay, and you have the dust particles also, right? Dust particles depends on the size, so varies in the size, right? They are also found in the atmosphere. All right. So it consisting of the gases, dust and the water vapor, right, in the atmosphere. All right, fine. Next, biosphere. So biosphere means it is the narrow zone of the earth where, the land, water and the air interact. So that means it is the narrow zone of earth where the lithosphere, hydrosphere and the atmosphere interact. So that is why we call them the biosphere, isn't it? And it is basically, the sphere which basically support life, right, isn't it? So it is basically sphere which support a life. Okay. Now, next is human made environment. All right. So human made environment means it is basically the environment which is artificially created. Okay. It is not a natural environment like we have seen. Okay. But it is a human made. So it is artificial. It is anthropogenic. It is anthropogenic. So it is called artificial environment also, which is made up of human, which include, the buildings, which include the park, which include the bridges, which include the roads, which include the industries, and which include monuments. I hope you would have, heard about, you would have seen also these, these environment or these artificial environment which was created by the human. All right. And human, every human has tendency to adopt certain features of the natural environment, right? As well as the surrounding also, as you know that. And for sustainable development, right, for sustainable development of any region, there should be a balance. There should be a balance between the human and natural environment. Okay. If the balance is not there, what will happen? There is, disbalance in the human and environment relationship, and that cause the severe harm to the environment, right? Obviously that cause the severe harm to the environment. So the balance is very much needed between the natural and the human environment, and this imbalance lead to, you know pollution, all right, soil degradation, isn't it? Different type of pollution, soil degradation, isn't it? Then different type of diseases which are spreading, contagious diseases, epidemics, pandemics, all right, and which is led to also, the climate change, all right, which has led to the climate change, and many more and many more. So this imbalance basically leads to many ill effects, right? And the human environment basically includes, say, individual, family, community, religion, educational institutes, the economic field, as well as the political situation. So they are basically part of your human environment. Now, the human being basically interact with the environment, right? Obviously we also interact with the environment, and we modify ourselves according to their need, right? So based on, the necessity which is inflicted by the environment, we basically modify ourselves, and also in some time we also modify the environment also according to our need, right? So both impact each other. So human being, interacting means it is a two-way process. It is a two-way process. The human being affect the environment also affect the human being. But it is to define, or it is to find out which is more dominant in this relationship, right? So the form of pollution, right, different type of, the pollution which we are facing is because of, you know the human has caused the severe imbalance in the human environment relationship. Next is every humans adapted themselves to their natural environment, right? So the humans also adapted to the natural environment, because you have seen, say, in the colder regions in the Siberia, the people used to stay in the igloo, right? They used to cover their bodies with the fur, right? They are having, certain set of non-vegetarian diet, isn't it? So they have adapted to, their natural environment, like that. The people who used to stay in the desert region, they have special adaptation to the desert region, right? Which is very much required for them to sustain in the desert region. Even not only the humans, but also, the animals also adapt themselves. So early humans basically adapted themselves to the environment, but later humans, it is basically early humans. But when you say the later humans, basically, they started modifying the environment, they started disturbing this balance, and which has led to, you know unsustainability in this relationship. And with the time, the humans learn to grow the new things and domesticate animals, and which lead to the settled life, so here you must understand, right? Because as the humans progress, right, as the development occurred, the humans started, settling at one place, right, isn't it? The humans also started learning the domestication of the animals, the learning of, the sowing of the seeds, cultivation of the crops, and etc. So it started living a settled life, which is also, started on, the modifying of the environment. And later, at the advanced level, the industrial revolution, the transportation, the information revolution, the information made communication, right, easier and speedy across the world, which has led to the further complicated this relation. So the industrial revolution, which has significantly caused the harm to the environment in terms of the deforestation, in terms of the degradation, in terms of the erosion, in terms of pollution, in terms of climate change, right? So obviously, which has made the information more, the communication more easier, but it has adverse impact also. Okay, let's understand about ecosystem. What is the ecosystem? So first of all, right, first of all, you must understand, when you say there are living organism, right, a living organism in an environment, right? So the environment, or the living organisms will have the relationship with their environment, isn't it? That basically the surrounding environment and the interaction between the living organisms is called basically ecosystem. So ecosystem is nothing but a relationship between a living organism, right, as well as the relationship between the living organism and their surrounding, isn't it? So you have different components. Okay, for example, you have the living organism 1, you have the living organisms 2, and you have basically your surrounding environment. Okay, so surrounding, so there could be possibility that there is relationship between them. There may be possibility that there is a relationship between them. There is possibility that there is a relationship between them. So the relationship, or the relationship between the living two living organisms, the relationship between one living and their surrounding, they're all part of your ecosystem, right? And there could be ecosystem for the large forest. You have the forest ecosystem, rainforest. You have the grassland ecosystem, where the predominantly grasses will be found. In the rainforest, predominantly the forest will be found. In the desert region, you will have the xerophytic vegetation, isn't it? In the mountainous region, sometimes you may have the vegetation is slope, or the slope which is covered by the vegetation, isn't it? Then you have the lake. Okay, then you have the river, then you have the ocean, and even the small pond. All are part of, or all are basically having its own ecosystem. Okay, so these are ecosystems which are different kind, right? We will learn more about them as we graduate in the higher classes. All right, next chapter basically related to the earth. So first of all, let's understand what is earth. Okay, so earth basically consisting of three layers. Okay, the topmost layer, when you divide the earth like that, or when you take the slice. Okay, the topmost layer is called basically a crust. Okay, the second layer is called basically mantle, and the third layer is basically called core. So the first layer is crust, second layer mantle, and the third layer basically is a core. So these are basically the three layers which consisting of the earth. Okay, now you must understand, there is constant changes, or that has taken place, right, you know inside as well as outside of the earth. So we'll learn more about the crust and the mantle. The crust, as I said, is the topmost layer. The mantle is also divided into the upper mantle, and you have the lower mantle. Core itself is divided into upper core, and you have the lower core. Okay, the upper core is basically in the molten stage. The lower core is basically in the solid state. The mantle is mainly solid. Crust is also solid, and there is one more layer called asthenosphere. Okay, this is basically lying over there, so it is called asthenosphere. Okay, all right. Then what is the interior of the earth? So first of all, there is lot to learn from the interior of the earth. So first of all, just like onions, right? So here also there is several layers which consisting of the earth. Okay, so when you say the topmost layer is basically your crust. Okay, so the again crust can be divided into two parts, isn't it? So one crust can be found on the continent, isn't it? So it is called continental crust, isn't it? The another crust can be found on the ocean, so it is called oceanic crust. It is called oceanic crust. So continental crust and oceanic crust. Okay, so when you say their thickness also varies, so continental crust average thickness is around 30 to 35 kilometers, and average thickness on The oceanic, the crust is basically around 5 kilometers. Why it is there? Because this crust is basically less dense and it is more dense, something like that. Okay, so the continental crust is having more thickness. You can demonstrate this thing is like that. So let's say this is continental, the crust, and it is basically your the oceanic crust. So you know it is continental, which is much thicker. All right. And the uppermost layer of the earth's surface is called basically crust, as I've told you, right? And regarding the lithosphere or regarding the continent, basically they are also called the layer called sial. Sial, why we call sial? Because it is mainly consisting of the two mineral components or two mineral constituents which are made up of silica and the alumina. So silica and alumina are predominantly found in the continental mass or in the continental crust. All right. So that is why it is also called sial layer. Okay. Let's begin with the oceanic crust. Okay. As I told you, oceanic crust means it is mainly consisting of, you know, basically the silica and magnesium. So sometimes it is also called SEMA. It is also called SEMA because it is consisting of silica and magnesium. So it is called SEMA. Okay. And just below the crust, there is another layer. Okay. So you see basically this another layer is called mantle. So it is core layer. Okay. You can divide this one here itself. Okay. Let's say it is continental crust. It is oceanic because it is less thicker. You see here differentiating continental and oceanic. All right. And there is another set of layer which is also called mantle. Okay. So just below the crust, it is a mantle up to the extent of 2,900 kilometers. So you see here the depth is 2,900 kilometers. So this depth at this level is 2,900 kilometers. All right. And innermost layer further beyond that, which have the radius of 3,500 kilometers. So this radius will have 3,500 kilometers, which is basically consisting of your core. And as I told you, that core is basically consisting of, or core is basically, the most dense layer. It is the most dense layer. So it is basically consisting of, the heavy metals like nickel and the iron, right? And that is the reason it has the density above 12, right? So it has the density above the 12 because of it is basically having some of the heavier elements or heavier metals like nickel and the iron. And as I told you that the inner core is basically solid and the outer core is basically in the liquid or in the semi-liquid form. In the semi-liquid form because of the density differentiation, right? Because of the density differentiation, right? Okay. All right. Let's understand the difference between rocks and the minerals. So first of all, the rocks what we see basically in our surrounding, right? They are first of all in the solid state. Okay. And they are made up of certain substances, right? These substances we call minerals. So that means the rocks are consisting of the minerals, isn't it? So the rocks are mainly consisting of the minerals, and the earth crust are made up of different type of rocks. Okay. So when you say the earth crust, right, both continental crust as well as your oceanic crust, so they are made up of different type of rocks, right? So you have the different type of rocks like igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, metamorphic rocks, isn't it? Right? And that ultimately makes up the earth crust, okay, which is nothing but the rock. All right. And as I told you, there are three major types of rocks. One is called igneous rocks, another is called sedimentary rocks, and third is called basically metamorphic rocks. One by one we will learn about that. Okay. So first of all, let's understand about the igneous rocks. So igneous rocks are those rocks which have been made up of, you know, first of all, you must understand, let's say this is your ground surface and this is basically your the inside earth. Okay. When there is a, the the magma which is basically inside the earth, so it is basically inside portion, so it is called basically magma. So the molten rock inside the earth is called basically magma. It's called magma. All right. When it is come out through the volcanic eruption, okay, or fissure volcanoes, they are called basically lava. That is called lava. So it is the similar, the molten, the rocks. All right. So first of all, these molten magma, which is basically lying within the earth's surface. So I told you that the molten rocks are called magma. So when they become solid, okay, inside the earth's surface and deposited within the earth's surface, let's say there is a plume, of magma. Okay, it has to reach to the earth's surface, right? This is the earth's surface. Okay, it has to be reached to the earth's surface in order to come out as a volcano. Sometimes what happens is there is not enough pressure, so it started settling down inside the earth itself, right? And it started depositing somewhere, wherever it's found the fissures or the space to get deposited. All right. And such type of rocks, because of deposition of this magma within the earth's surface, is called igneous rock or intrusive igneous rocks. They are called intrusive igneous rocks. All right. So intrusive igneous rocks means the rocks which are formed out of the deposition of the molten magma within the earth's surface is called intrusive igneous rocks, isn't it? But it is made up of, the rocks. And there are another set of rocks are called extrusive igneous rocks. Extrusive का मतलब होता है the rocks which are mainly found on the earth's surface. That means the lava which have come out, right, from the earth's surface, it would have deposited, and over the period of the time it would have solidified, right, and it would have formed the extrusive igneous rocks. Extrusive means which have come up on the earth's surface, or which have come up on the earth's surface because of any reason. All right. So there are two types of igneous rocks. One is called intrusive. I hope it is clear. And the second is called basically extrusive. Extrusive means outside, intrusive means inside the earth's surface. All right. The another set of rocks are called sedimentary rocks. So what is the sedimentary rocks? You must understand. Sedimentary rocks are those forms which sedimentary rocks are those rocks which are formed out of the deposition and consolidation of sediments. Now these sediments can be derived from any sources. Okay, sometime what happens is the rocks may fall down, break down the small fragments. Okay, they may have certain sediments, maybe some sediments may be transported by air, by wind, right, by water, right. They would have compressed, they would have, over the period of time they would have hardened, right. you know Now these rocks which have been hardened, compressed, transported, right, these are called basically sedimentary rocks. So these sediments can be derived from anyone, right, either from the sedimentary rock from itself, because sedimentary rocks also maybe weathered, maybe eroded, and maybe depositing somewhere. It may be the igneous rocks also. So that means the sediments can be taken or can be originated from any rock, whether the rock is whether the rock is at igneous rock, or whether the rock is sedimentary rock, or whether the rock is metamorphic rock. That means sedimentary rocks can be formed, right, from any type of rocks, but it requires the sediments to compress and to harden in the form of layer. So it is called stratified layer. That is called stratified का मतलब होता है there is a strata, strata means a layered form. So it is called stratified or strata. Okay, so the layer by layer compression and the layer by layer hardening of those sediments has led to the development of sedimentary rocks, and these sediments can be derived from any source. Yeah, all right, fine. Then, as I told you that igneous rocks and the sedimentary rocks can change into the metamorphic rocks under the great heat and pressure. So first of all, let's understand what is the metamorphic rocks. So metamorphic means the changed form. So that means this rock will have entirely different change form in terms of the chemical composition, right? In terms of its appearance, physical appearance, right? In terms of other properties, physical properties, chemical properties, right? But what it is required is it required the great heat and it required the great pressure. So that means under tremendous high pressure and tremendous high heat, isn't it? Both igneous rocks as well as the sedimentary rocks can be transformed into the metamorphic rocks, which is in the changed form, which has the different set of chemical and physical properties. All right. And there is one more cycle called rock cycle. Rock cycle means it is a demonstration or is a depiction of the transformation of one rock from the another rock, because we can say that igneous and igneous and sedimentary rocks, because if you draw this figure, sedimentary rocks, okay, you write here metamorphic. So both igneous and the sedimentary rocks can be converted into metamorphic, isn't it? The metamorphic rocks can also be converted into sedimentary rocks when it's sediment, right, over the period of the time. But you must understand, the igneous rock can also be converted into sedimentary rocks. Can the sedimentary rock can be converted into igneous rocks? No, it cannot be converted, because there is no way that sedimentary rocks can be molten, right, can be melted, right? So there is no way. So this either way is not possible. So this relationship of transformation, the rock from one rock to the another rock is shown or depicted in the form of your rock cycle, in the form of your rock cycle. And these rocks are made up of different minerals. All right. So these rocks are made up of different minerals, as I told you, right? These minerals are sometimes naturally occur substances, right, which have certain physical properties and definite chemical composition. That is the definition of the minerals. So these minerals are having, you know you know some of, the, certain definite physical and the chemical properties, and which are basically occur naturally. All right. So it is basically, those properties of those minerals. So if you ask me to draw, I can draw this, a map here, a bit briefly map. Let's understand it is igneous rocks. Okay, let's understand it is sedimentary rocks. Let's understand it is metamorphic rock. And we call it is a rock cycle. We call it is a rock cycle. Okay. Can sedimentary rock can be converted into can igneous rocks can be converted into sedimentary rocks? Tell me. Yes, the igneous rocks can be converted into sedimentary rocks because it require the two process called weathering, erosion. That means it required the transportation. It also required, the deposition, and, ultimately consolidation. Isn't it? So the igneous rocks can be converted into sedimentary rocks in this form. Can sedimentary rocks convert into igneous rocks? No, they can't convert the igneous rock. So this is only one way. Okay. Can sedimentary rock can be converted into metamorphic rocks? Yes, sedimentary rocks can be converted into metamorphic rock. It require, you know, the great temperature and pressure. So that means the sedimentary rocks can be converted, but it require the high temperature and pressure. High temperature and pressure. Under high temperature and pressure, it can be converted into metamorphic rock. Can igneous rock convert into metamorphic rock? Now you should understand that the igneous rocks I'm talking about is extrusive form here. Okay, it can be intrusive also. Okay, so here the can igneous rocks can be converted into metamorphic rocks? Yes, it can be converted. So it required the high temperature and pressure. So under high temperature and pressure, right, the igneous rocks can also be converted into the metamorphic rocks. Okay. Can metamorphic rocks convert into igneous rocks in the reverse way? In the reverse way, Okay, so this type of cycle we are talking about, can metamorphic rocks convert into sedimentary rocks? Yes, because it only required the metamorphic rocks to get weathered, to get eroded, to get transported, to get deposited, and ultimately consolidated over the period of time, and can be converted into sedimentary rocks, isn't it? Like that, the igneous rocks can also be converted into sedimentary rocks, isn't it? Can metamorphic rocks convert into igneous rocks? So that depends on other factors. So this type of, the relationship of transformation of one rock to the another rock is called the rock cycle. Is called the rock cycle. All right. So that's how these two chapters related to the geography we should cover. All right. And today we have covered the two chapters of the geography, the first two chapters of the geography. All right. So in terms of the environment, first of all, we have understood the environment, like what is the definition of the environment. Then we have gone through the biotic and abiotic component or non-biotic component. All right. Then we have also gone through the natural environment, definition of the natural environment. We have also gone through about the lithosphere. Okay, the definition of the lithosphere. We have also gone through the hydrosphere. We have also gone through the atmosphere, isn't it? We have also gone through the biosphere, the definition of the biosphere. We have also seen the human made environment. Okay, the human environment. Okay, and we have seen the relationship between the human and the environment. Okay, it is, the interacting process. It is basically a bidirectional process. Then we have seen the definition of ecosystem. Okay, and we have seen the earth, interior of the earth, because since it is a seventh standard class, so I'm not going into that detail. Right, as you gradually move to the higher classes, you will be having more details about these, the layers of the earth. So right now it is not required because it is seventh standard NCRT. So it does not require that much detailing here itself. But as you graduate or as you move up to the higher classes, definitely you will learn more about, there are continuity discontinuity also in between the layers. So that thing also you will learn, and you will learn more properties about those layers. All right. And we have seen the composition of the layers, Sial, Sima, right? Their thickness, right? We have seen the 35 kilometers thickness on, the continental crust, and 5 kilometers around thickness of oceanic crust. We have also seen that, the mantle is made up of around, 2900 kilometers, right? And the core is basically made up of 3500 kilometers as a radius. It is mainly made up of nickel and the iron. So it is heavy metal, isn't it? So its density is much higher. Then we have seen the rocks and the minerals. So we have seen minerals, we have seen the definition of rocks, we have seen the three types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and the metamorphic, isn't it? So there are different type of rocks which are also found. We have seen how the igneous rocks have been formed. We have seen how the metamorphic rocks have been formed, isn't it? And we have seen also how the metamorphic, sedimentary, and igneous rocks form. And we have seen also rock cycle, which means the transformation of one rock to the another rock. So we have seen that transformation also, isn't it? We have seen, you know all right. And this is basically rock cycle. So thank you very much for this session. We will meet again tomorrow for our new class. Thank you very much.